Hi, everyone. This is Ray Luskin, the author of The Creative Activist, Make the World Better, One Person, One Action at a Time. I have been so blessed over the last few years. I've been working in the arena of working to improve the lives of women and children around the world and, ending abuse across the lifeline. And I have run across some incredible, amazing people. And one of those people is Mary Graziano, and she's going to be speaking today from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, at this wonderful event, the Creative Activist Summit. So welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Ray. Nice to talk to you, and I guess we can get on our way here.
Right. Let me just go back and just tell people a little bit more about you. Mary has been a teacher with special needs children in the Hamilton-Wentworth Catholic School District. She's married, she has children and grandchildren, and she is a survivor and free and moving on with her life, and she is a poet, and she's a blogger, and she's writing children's stories. So, welcome, Mary, one more time.
Thank you, Ray, for that introduction.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm so happy you can participate in the Creative Activist Summit. This has been a dream of mine for a long time, and as you know, because Mary's been active on our Facebook group, The Creative Activist, that I'm here to create a movement, and it's all about connecting and collaborating and co-creating a better world, and that I want to help connect everybody, and that's why we're having this summit. And Mary has an important voice that she's going to share with us. So, who inspires you, Mary?
Quite a few people inspire me. One of my biggest inspirational persons is Mother Teresa. I've always had a lot of respect for her and love the words that she uses and the work she does. Just for many, many years, I've just been a great fan of hers. And also, one of my close friends and dear friends, Michael Madison, who's a professional artist who paints watercolor portraits. And she really inspires me by her work that helps me write my poetry, because I do a lot of poetry on her paintings. And go ahead.
I was going to ask just a question, because you're saying, so does it work both ways? Do you have a poem and ask her to paint, or do you just usually look at a painting and then you're inspired?
No, I usually look at her paintings. I've never done it the other way. That's an idea, though, for the future. I see her painting come online on Facebook, and with her paintings, it's the eyes that really speak to me. There's just something about her. She's just fabulous at doing eyes, and it's like I just look at them and the words just come to me, and I just start writing, and it just happens. I can't explain it, but it's just so fabulous that I can do it that way. And
okay.
With every one of her poems, that's how I've done it.
All right, I love that. So you mentioned Mother Teresa and this, and let's talk a little bit about your background, and your personal story, that what makes you do the work you do.
Okay.
These are poems of inspiration.
I was adopted as a baby at 6 months of age, and I also have a brother who was adopted. My parents were both abusive towards me. My mother was physically and emotionally abusive. It was her way or no way, and I was the type of a child that was very meek and never ever talked back to her, even in my adulthood. If I didn't listen, then I'd get hit pretty bad. She never hugged me. I don't ever remember her saying I love you. My dad, he was very loving towards me. He never ever hit me. But then he showed me love in the wrong way as being my sexual abuser. Uh, I can remember from the ages of 5 or 6 until I was about 16, I believe it was. And I never told anybody because I felt that nobody would believe me anyway, especially my mother. My dad was loved by everybody, and nobody would believe me. So I kept silent for all of my childhood and pretended that nothing happened. Went on with my life, got married, had kids, and when my kids were teenagers, I have a girl and a boy. I started falling into a depression, and all my childhood stuff was coming back to me. So I talked to a coworker of mine that I used to know at one of the schools I worked at, and she got a hold of the pastoral services, and she was fabulous. I used to go to therapy with her for about a couple of years. I still hadn't told my husband. I guess I was too afraid to tell him, to see what he would think. So I kept it silent. And finally I had to tell him because I was becoming suicidal. And my therapist has said, it's up to you. I'm not going to tell you. You have to decide whether you want to tell him or not. And so one Saturday morning I woke up and I told him, and I cried, and he was very understanding and very supportive. He never wanted to go to my dad's again, but I always went to my parents' house to help them out or whatever, or dinners or Christmas time, and continued doing this even though he knew what was going on, that went on. But we kept up scenario of nothing really happened. I continued into therapy with the mental health center here in Hamilton after I was hospitalized a few times. And I was in therapy for about 17 years. And it was a long time. It was hard, but I don't ever regret it. And I would advise anybody who needs to talk to somebody about abuse or whatever, see a therapist, because if you find the right one and you connect, it's so rewarding in the end. I mean, it's a lot of years for some people short time. But for me, it took me a long time. I learned how to become assertive. I'm not afraid to speak in front of people anymore. I have moved forward that way, and I've also have a blog that I started back in 2008, I believe, and it's called Nippercat's Home. And I started writing my poetry there about my child abuse. And so the first.
Okay, I was going to ask you how creativity has played into your healing and how it has worked for you. So, go ahead.
How the blog worked for me?
Well, I believe in creativity for healing. So, how has that empowered you? How has it changed you by writing and sharing your story, your blog?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sharing my blog with everybody about my story, and that was really healing for me because I got it all out of me, and seeing it on paper, and that it helped me realize that it wasn't my fault. And I had a lot of comments from a lot of my readers, and they thanked me for doing my poetry. And my poems back then were very simple, everyday words that they could understand. So it was healing for them also. So that helped me move on to become more of an inspirational poet now. And most of my poetry, I try to inspire other people, help them get their creativity flowing. And I continue today. I don't write any dark stuff unless I'm doing it on my one page where it's for child abuse. But I'm trying now to be creative and inspiring other people, with happy thoughts and goals for themselves, and to reach out to others so that they
I
too
love
can.
that. It's
Thanks.
interesting. I was having a conversation yesterday with Michael Skinner, who is also part of our Facebook group.
Right.
And when Michael and I were talking, we were talking about how we used to have to, whether he had to drum it or use his guitar or music, you're doing poetry. I as well would have to paint the pain first. It had to be removed from my body in such a way that I could be hopeful, that I could see something beyond the pain. And then as I've gone along, my colors changed, my inspiration changed, my forms changed just because of that same. It was a process. And I think that's what people don't recognize, that you have to start in one place to get somewhere else. And sometimes you have to go back into the pain to release it.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, that's where we start, right? We start with the pain, and like you say, we move on. It releases itself and becomes, for all the pain that we had to go through, it's helped us to become who we are today, lifting us up so that we could help lift other people up. And I think that's one of the greatest things that as sad as it is to go through child abuse, and to get through it and be a survivor and move on to more inspirational, powerful stuff that grabs other people, and that they can see that they too can move on and get out of the darkness.
Right. I mean, and that's one of the reasons I believe in the creative activist, because it is that voice of hope in the darkness. It is the light, in the darkness. It's that when you're feeling helpless, there's another way to get through it. And when we also, and I so believe in sharing our stories in whatever creative form that is, and it could be a painting, a photography, whatever, because we don't know. There's one person who's been waiting for us to tell our story so they can resonate with it. And as you said, you've gotten, people, thank you. I know I have too. And a lot of times we don't know how our artwork, and I'm using that term loosely, has influenced and impacted somebody else and created a new dialogue. And that's what I think we need to do if we're going to change the tenor of the world and say this is not okay and start having those conversations. There have to be new ways to get around the apathy and the anger that people feel.
That's right. I agree with you there. I know my therapist, she used to read my blog, and she was letting her other clients go to my blog to read what I wrote about abuse, and she says it really, really helped them. And after seeing me telling her what I'm doing on Facebook and how I'm changing and becoming more inspirational, and that, she says, I think my job here is done with you. You've earned your wings. And that was the end of my therapy. So I find it very empowering to write and help other people see that they too can become better and out of the darkness, like I said before. And,
right. I'm curious, what's your process like when you're writing? What do you take time? Do you schedule it on your calendar? Do you do it by muse? How do you do that when you're working?
I'll be just sitting here at my computer desk, and I just get my writing book out. I have many, and I'm sure you do too. And I just, maybe something I've read or heard on the news, or something I've Googled, maybe something I've heard on Facebook. Something clicks, and I just start writing about whatever it was. Or I'll just now I've started doing watercolor backgrounds for my own backgrounds, and it just, I don't know, it's something just clicks, and I just start writing away, and then I look at what I write, and then I'll go back over it and change this or that, and something else will inspire me by what I wrote, and I'll write it differently again. So it's it might take me a couple of days or so, but it comes out in the end, and I don't know, it just flows.
Okay. So what do you do when you get stuck? How do you break through that barrier?
I'll leave it for a while. I'll think about it, but I'll go do other things. I'll just forget about it for maybe a day or maybe half a day, and I'll go back and sit down and look at it again. Um, and then I usually can get out of the block and start writing. Maybe I'll write it over again in a different way, and just find that it changes what I have written into something else. So I've taken those group of words and changed them in a way, and then I'll see that I'm starting to write it, and it just keeps flowing. That's one thing I find with me when I write. The words just seem to come out, and I just keep writing and writing and writing, and then like I said before, I look over it again, and then I decide what I want to keep and what I don't want to keep, and that's how
I know,
I
I
do
know
it.
when I write, a lot of times I do a brain dump. So I write every single thing I can think about, and then
Right.
I go back and edit it. I mean, that's my personal process. I'm not one who it just comes out. I just start writing, and so it can be pages to then get back to one page, kind of thing.
Right.
But I'm big on doing a brain dump. I'm also big on getting up and going out in nature and just getting out of my environment, because I'll notice when I get stuck that I need to do that as well. And and there are little things that I do, like I sit here and I have a amethyst stone that I sort of hold in my fingers, and so there are different things that I do at different times depending what I need to get done. So
Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm going to wait for you. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, that's what I do. Like, I'll leave. Sometimes I'll go out and play with the dogs and just get my mind off of everything, and kind of refresh myself, and then go back in and see if I can do it again and edit it. And I've done that with a lot of my poetry that I've written, my prose, even on some of the paintings of Michael's. I'll change it from a year ago when I first wrote it, and then I'll change the words. I find that I can do it even better. So I'll not completely change it, but change quite a bit of it. And I usually do that with one of her paintings as I go along, and repost them again. And it it keeps me going.
I believe it does. So if you have any tips for people just getting started in their healing journey, what would you say to them?
To go slow, write things down. I find that if you write it down and don't keep it inside, it helps you heal better, makes you stronger. If you have to write a letter to your abuser, write it. And it doesn't mean you have to give it to them. Like, I've done it myself. I've written a letter to my dad, and I've just burned it and flushed it down the toilet. And it makes you feel so much better inside. And I find that you can move on in your journey and move forward instead of backwards.
Mhm. I know for me, forgiveness is a big part of my work that I had to do, and it was forgiving myself, forgiving my parents who didn't protect me, and forgiving my grandfather who was my perpetrator. And, and it's so interesting. I was just at a retreat with my coach in California, and we were going back and we had to do some forgiveness work, and I was so surprised that there was still some residual stuff, even though I've, worked on this for a million years kind of thing, but it was a different and a deeper level, that forgiveness, because it was really about, I could see the fear in them. I could see, what they about expectations, all these other pieces of it, and I was able to write this real letter of forgiveness for them, for my father and for myself. And I was angry at God as well. I mean, so I wrote a letter to God, and that's not the first time. But it was so interesting. And then we were trying to burn it, but we were afraid of California fires, so I ended up ripping it out. And
Yeah,
we did that, and then I hugged a tree because I needed that connection to earth. I needed that divine knowingness and the solidity and being grounded in that. That
right.
forgiveness is an ongoing process, and it comes up over and over at different times, and especially when you're stepping out into your brilliance and you're sharing your story. I think it really pops up, and I think that's what people are doing on this during this creative activist summit. The listeners are also being asked to question their lives and look at things that they may not have wanted to look at for a long time, and so and they're being inspired and motivated by our conversation.
Right, right. I found for myself, forgiveness wasn't a part of me for up until this year. I didn't want to forgive. Um, I realize now that that was wrong. I have forgiven my mother. Both my parents are dead, by the way. My mom's been dead for 11 years. My dad's been dead for 8 years. Um, I have now forgiven my mom. I've gone to her gravesite and I did finally forgive her. My dad, I'm almost there. I think it'll be coming soon. He ended up passing away from Alzheimer's disease. So, and we never ever spoke about what happened to me as a child. Um,
Mm.
so, that part and never happened. But I felt that I didn't need to forgive because it was his fault, not mine. But I realize now that it's time. Um,
Well, and
you
I
know,
believe forgiveness is for us. It isn't for them. It
yeah,
is for us to move on, to be healed, to move and be whole. That's my personal belief,
right.
and that we have to forgive ourselves for even making ourselves wrong, for believing that we weren't good enough, or we didn't do that, or why didn't we do that, and all that. So, I applaud you for continuing the journey and doing the work.
Thank
I
you.
wanted to ask you, how do you see creative activists coming together to collaborate, to create more change in the world, to open up people's eyes to this important issue that still people don't want to talk about? Today people want to talk about sex trafficking, but they don't want to talk about that 80% of the kids on the street were sexually or physically abused at home. So that's why they're on the
Yeah,
street, So,
that infuriates me a lot. I've said it before, even on Facebook, how you see all these commercials and stuff for dog abuse, and people go nuts over that. And I mean, I'm a animal lover. I have pets of my own, and I believe that. But I believe that humans come first, and we've got to get that word out there and make people understand that they can't turn a blind eye to child abuse. We've got to get out there and fight for the kids and be more active in it. And I've tried by, posting a lot of stuff on Facebook and that, but hoping when I retire I can do other things. But we need to get out there and really push it, and because people are
and how is
ignoring
it in Canada? What is the feeling? What support do you get from organizations there? Again, I'm not there. I don't know what it is. What does the government do or say, or do you get PSAs like we do here, and stuff like that? So I don't know.
Yeah, it's almost the same as in the States. There's a lot, especially out in Western Canada, where they're having a lot of problems with the government and child abuse issues, with kids being in foster homes and that, with the natives out west, all the missing natives that the government's just forgetting about. And it's so wrong, and it really, really makes me angry. So, there's not a lot going on here either about it, and that's not a good thing. We
Okay.
come
So
together.
what would be your vision of a good thing? What would be your vision going forward? What would you like to see happen?
I'd like to see more people recognize that there are so many children being abused, and that they will step up and make that call, not be afraid that, well, what if I'm wrong? Make the call anyway. It doesn't matter. The more people that do that, you're going to save the life of one child anyway. You know, um, it's got to be done, and people have got to realize and find a way to do this, and not be afraid to not answer the call. I mean, you see it every day, people just walk away. They don't want to get involved because, I feel that they don't want to get involved because it's not their child. I mean, it'd be different if it was. But, yeah, I don't know. It's something's got to change. Have to figure
Okay.
out what.
So do you feel that the creativity, if we, is a key to doing that? I mean, I'm asking your opinion. I believe that, but I want to know what your thoughts are on that.
I think it is. Being creative, the creativity part helps others see what we're doing and helps them realize that, hey, this is a good thing. The more they see, I think the better it is.
Okay. So how can people get a hold of you or learn more about your poetry and upcoming children's stories and books?
I'm on Facebook under Mary Graziano. My blog is www.nippercats.blogspot.com or Nippercats Home. If you look up Nippercats Home, you'll find my blog. And how else? I guess through Facebook.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate you spending time with us today and sharing your thoughts. And everybody, I'm so honored that you are participating in this Creative Activist Summit, because it is your chance to learn more about what's going on in the world, how you can personally make a difference. My hope for this, and one of my goals, was that everybody walks away feeling they know how to step up, stand up for what they believe, that one person can make a difference. An individual sharing poetry, writing a blog can make a difference for you and for them, because when you share your story, you feel better, and the person who hears it can feel that they're not alone. So again, Mary, thank you for being with us. And everybody, we have available also, don't forget that you can purchase the gold package, and you can download all of our 24 amazing speakers and their transcripts